our guests who are joining us at the moment. We have with us Mr. Ram Madhav, author and president of the India Foundation. Also with us is Kanwal Sibal, former foreign secretary and former ambassador to Russia, really from India. Nikita Menkovich is director of the Eurasian Analytical Club. We also have Alex Zidan, former Republican candidate for the US Senate. Let me come across to you first. Mr. Ram Madhav, expectations are very high, as they are, of course, when such high-level bilateral meets take place. But the question is, what really can be a big takeaway, given the kind of pressure and sustained pressure that has been coming in from the side of the United States, from the side of EU, as one of my colleagues just referred to, even three ambassadors writing that piece, of course, urging India to take a certain stance when it comes to Russia. What are your expectations, Mr. Ram Madhav?
Madhav, firstly, let me ask you to not say that lot of pressure is coming on India because three ambassadors wrote some op-ed piece in an Indian newspaper. That is not how diplomatic pressures are exerted. Nobody writes op-eds in papers. Writing op-ed is actually a frustration because there is no other channel, so let me write in a newspaper. India is too big. Prime Minister Modi is too strong a leader to be pressurized by anybody. It's not exactly about pressure. It's about expressing their, their reservations, you call it, or their frustration, you call it. But, about the importance of this visit, remember any such bilateral visit at that level between countries like India and Russia, or for that matter with such important countries, we'll have a lot of important takeaways in terms of business, in terms of certain, important agreements happening. But the real significance of this visit is going to be the messaging. The strong message it will send out to the whole world that the world has changed. The West has better to understand that they are living in a multipolar setup. They can no longer dictate others, and especially duplicity that we see all the time in the actions of countries, some certain countries in Europe is no longer accepted. I mean, countries like India cannot be browbeaten or cannot be pressurized into taking positions on international affairs. So the messaging part is much more important, and I'm really happy that Prime Minister Modi ji is not leaving anything unturned to convey that message very strongly. Going to receive President Putin at the airport, having private dinner with him, besides, of course, official engagements. All this is a clear messaging that, number one, we will strictly adhere to our autonomous position when it comes to India's foreign policy, India's interests, but at the same time, we won't go by your duplicitous behavior. You receive President Putin in Alaska, you throw a red carpet there, that is accepted, but India receives Putin is not accepted. You write op-eds in Indian newspapers. That is very unfortunate. Nevertheless, I think the messaging part should be what we should take very seriously.
Absolutely. In fact, the hypocrisy doesn't end there. The hypocrisy also, Mr. Sibal, is there when we saw when it comes to putting pressure on India, buying that energy from Russia, whereas you have both the EU, which is engaged heavily in terms of purchasing energy from Russia. You even have US itself, which has some amount of imports coming in from Russia, but yet there was this diplomatic pressure that was put to try and urge India to stop making those purchases from Russia. Of course, since then we have seen what the sanctions have done. But going beyond that, India's own engagement, strategically speaking, given the fact that we purchase so much of military hardware from Russia, are you looking at some kind of developments on those fronts as well, amongst the big announcements that are likely or takeaways that's likely to come out of this particular visit? Mr. Sibal.
I think just to say something before I answer your question, that the importance of this visit lies in the fact that it is taking place. It's not as if the closeness and strength of India-Russia ties over the years is unknown to the West. What has really happened is that because of the Ukraine conflict and the West's expectations that they'll be able to impose a strategic defeat on Russia, and which has not happened, there is obviously a great deal of frustration, especially in Europe, which has been excluded from the conversations between US and Russia. So they are therefore now directing pressure at India, but this is not new. If you look at what European leaders have been saying at Raisina dialogue and otherwise, I looked at that. There's been constant lecturing to us, sermonizing to us about reducing our ties with Russia, that we are on the wrong side of history. There is not a moral position to take. And Trump took it even further by saying that the war is continuing because India is providing sufficient funds to Russia to pursue this conflict because we are buying oil. And he's imposed these 50% tariffs on India with 25% of them because we buy Russian oil. So the fact that we stood our ground, we maintained our ties with Russia and with President Putin, Prime Minister has been meeting him. It's a different matter that he is not able to come to India for the summits. But Prime Minister has been meeting him in other locations, including most recently in Tianjin in China. So they are familiar with India standing its ground and not yielding to pressure. The fact that now he's coming to India on a state visit and the manner in which we are receiving him, and obviously important results will come out because there's no sense in having such a summit if there are not commensurate results that come out from it. This will then actually underline the message that we want to say, that we will pursue our national interests. We have no interest in alienating anybody, whether it's Europe or United States of America. What we will resist is their effort to dictate to us what should be our foreign policy, what should be our foreign policy choices, and interfere in such an important relationship that we have had over the years with a major country like Russia. Now, with regard to what may emerge from the visit, on defense side, which you specifically asked me, I think that Defense Secretary of India has already announced that there will be no major items that will be announced, which is actually quite normal. We don't announce as a matter of policy big defense agreements during a visit, because a lot of work has to precede that and a lot of work then has to follow up when you are doing these things. Now, we know that there are certain issues on the table. Rajnath Singh, I think very boldly in the context of Katsai and everything else, just to show also where we stand on these matters, said we are ready to buy more S-400s if Russia is willing to supply them. Now, there are 2 units that still have to be supplied. I'll just finish in half a minute. 2 units. Mr.
Sibal, I just want to quickly bring in some of our other panelists as well. We have Alex Zidane, who's with us. He's a former Republican candidate for the US Senate, and we have Nikita Menkovich as well. But Alex Zidane, I'd like you to come in on this, because our 2 previous speakers have dwelt extensively upon the fact that despite the huge tariffs that have been imposed by the Trump administration, we are not seeing this meeting happening for the first time. We've seen what has happened in Tianjin, where President Putin and Prime Minister Modi have met, and now, of course, the fact that he's being received here, on this official visit, just goes to show that India is not going to cow down to those pressures that are coming in from the United States.
Putin is also a judo master. He's a former KGB agent. And in judo, you use counterweight to achieve advantage over your opponent. This is what Putin is doing today. Putin is not the more powerful partner in this relationship between him and Prime Minister Modi. Russia is not the more powerful partner with India. This needs to be realized. And I believe that rolling out the red carpet for this guy sends the wrong message. Prime Minister Modi should send an aide to the airport to meet Vladimir Putin. India's non-aligned foreign policy, where it tries to befriend all, is commendable. But without a stronger leadership role in foreign policy, India risks being seen as an accessory. That's how Vladimir Putin sees India, as an accessory to his aims of reviving the old Soviet empire. That's what he's doing today. He is arriving in India to try and do his best to prey and plunder. And I pray that Indians and Prime Minister Modi see through that and recognize that this is a dangerous character who is in an impoverished country that is being kept alive simply by oil revenue and its nuclear weapons stockpile. We need to be clear-eyed and honest. Yes,
Okay.
There may be differences of opinion between the United States and India, but the two greatest democracies in the world should be friends.
Nikita Benkovich, would you like to respond to that? Is that really the strategy that is being employed over here by Russia, as has been suggested by Alex? Do you agree with his point of view?
As I see, United States are still dreaming to be a world leader, to control all processes in the world. But now we see it's quite impossible. Russia and India are independent countries, and it is not United States business what and how we do. It is not United States business what is happening in Iraq, in Ukraine, in any other countries. If United States pretends to be a democracy, they should do with their own business, with riots as the citizens, with falling down of the life level of American population. You have a lot of homework to do. Leave us alone, please. It is not your business, American guys. Forget about it. Russia and India are old partners, and we know how to do business between us. We are allies, and Russia is very thankful about hundreds of Indian volunteers fighting in Donbass to liberate Ukraine from American occupation. We are allies, and if United States want to deal with our countries, you should remember, you're not a god. You are just a country. There's a lot of problems inside. And forget about our business and our deals.
Nikita Benkovich, I have to interrupt because there's an update coming in at this moment. We have information coming in that President Putin's plane has entered the Indian airspace. That's the information coming in at this point of time. Quick update coming in, and therefore, in just a few moments, perhaps we would be looking at the touchdown happening at the Palam technical area is what our reporters are telling us. That's the latest update coming in. But Nikita, I'm going to come right back to you for one other aspect of this. One of the concerns that has been expressed on the Indian side is the huge imbalance when it comes to trade is concerned. We're talking at about $64 billion versus about $5 billion, and that's a massive gap. How much, will this visit really help in reducing the gap and the imbalance of trade that exists between Russia and India?
I think that the main topic of this visit is not talk about what America thinks and afraid. We're speaking about our own business. We're speaking about ammunition trade. We're speaking about oil. We're speaking about medicine cooperation. We're speaking about currency cooperation. Of course, Russia, India, and other countries are trying to build a new currency system because an old one is used by Western countries as a weapon of control for other states. They're using dollars to blackmail other countries. Of course, we cannot deal with it, and we are building our new financial and currency system. I'm really glad that India now is taking part in this process, and I hope it will go forward faster. And finally, I hope that once we will become really independent and we will be really ready to ignore everything these guys from Washington.
Okay. Let me bring in Kanwal Sibal. Kanwal Sibal, many observers have actually noted the fact that the imbalance in trade is quite huge. What do you see happening in that regard, particularly in terms of both this visit and in coming days, in terms of reducing that gap? Kanwal Sibal.
The Russian side has made it very clear, and President Putin has given instructions. He said that at one of the conclaves that were held in Russia, and I heard him myself, to say that he has given instructions to the government to make every effort to import more from India, to restore the balance of trade as much as possible. And of course, there are negotiations going on between India and Russia for an FTA with the Eurasian Economic Union. Now, there are things that we can export, pharmaceuticals being very on top of the list, but agricultural products are there, consumer products are there, chemicals are there, other industrial products, including engineering products. There are many things that NIT is a sector in which we have strengths. So there are areas in which we can cooperate. But for that, on the Russian side, they would have then to, look at their non-tariff barriers and at their registration processes and their regulatory processes, which I think they will this time more seriously than in the past, because they're under sanctions. Their access to global markets has got reduced. They are turning towards Asia in a very conscious, deliberate way, because that's where the consumers are. That's where the economic growth is. That's where there are huge populations, and they're towards the West. Declining population, declining demographics, very low rates of growth. Yes, those are major economies. There are things that Russia could sell to them, but the future lies towards the East. And in the East, apart from China, India looms very large as a partner. And this time, I think they'll make an effort, but we should be realistic. It will be a slow process. It's not as if overnight the trade volumes of Indian exports to Russia will jump up. But if the trend is positive,
true,
and every year we register growth, that's a good sign.
All right, I'm going to, yeah. All right. And certainly, of course, nothing will happen overnight, but at least an effort being made in that direction will be seen as a very significant measure. I'm going to request all our guests to stay on with us. We're going to continue the special broadcast in just a few minutes, and in fact, a few minutes from now, we expect to see pictures of President Putin touching down in New Delhi. Stay tuned.